machine. It's Tulip on the receiving end of the pool. Send us to Lochnan. In many ways, the master and the student. And Lochnan, not a lot opens up for him downfield as the cut is quite static. Now Tulip unleashes a huge backhand cross field. There's Jonah Malenfant and Rob Andrews leave their feet. Andrews inches from the end zone. Malenfant can't quite get a finger on it. And now Mammoth will have to hold Ellipsis out for longer if they can. A bidding player gets a hand on it and into the path of Oliver Lochnan. And Ellipsis fireworks to get things underway.
That was really interesting offense there from Ellipsis. Oliver Lochnan had next to no options after receiving that first pass from Tulit, and almost looked like it was going to potentially go to a stall out. He had to dump that one on what I could only assume would be a stall 7, stall 8. There was not a lot of downfield options, and then once that disc went back to Tulit, Rob Andrews gave that amazing deep cut that was hotly contested.
And that's the kind of defense that we
make it easy for them, and Ellipsis are definitely going to have to work harder on their offensive structures to try and break through that defense, because it's going to get to a point where Mammoth's going to start clamping down and they're going to start recognising exactly what Ellipsis wants to do. Timocles Copland up with the pull. Being received there. Centred, Permac with the disc. He's looking for the around break and finds Cal Spielman. He's looking long, can't find an option long, can't find an option long. Cook clears out and Grimond gives him the fill to Vo on the far sideline. And he looks to dump it straight back to Grimond with a floaty scuba over the top. And Grimond pops it up again. He's got Vo going long. And Vo comes down with it, plucks it straight out of the air over Harsher.
And that's a very similar shot to what we saw from the first point of Mammoth offense. Kind of chipping it around in that short field space until Grimond gets the disc with a deep cut in a position that he likes the look of, and he takes the shot, and Vo does well to bring it down. It's really almost perfect conditions for throwing. That crosswind that we talked about is pretty light on, and for a thrower of that caliber, he won't be phased at all.
Won't be phased at all, and exactly like we saw in the first point, no Mammoth player held the disc for longer than 4-5 seconds. They were really moving it quickly, and that really opens up their offensive structures and their offensive options. Ellipsis are going to have to work hard on defense, especially on their marks, to try and prevent those quick give-go options between the Mammoth handlers.
Pretty similar looking defensive unit from the first point for Mammoth. And it'll be Malenfant, the American import. He's over here on a university exchange, which he's extended after a 6-month stint last year. He's played a lot of his ultimate in Minnesota Grey Duck, and he's now bringing his talents to Brisbane Mammoth. Shulit with the disc at the centre. And Ellipsis working out of a horror. 2 passes, not the kind of clean looks that you'd expect. Maybe a few nerves under the lights for Ellipsis in these early stages. Shulit breaks the mark again to that far side. They look back to centre. And eventually Ely provides that outlet to the near side to Lyon. Lochnan, he has Ely going deep. The throw doesn't come as he's marked tightly by Hammond. The round eventually comes off and Shulit looks to provide the next option as he does near this side. Lips is just working out of a vertical stack, keeping it pretty simple. Looks like looking to attack from the back of the stack with the resets coming from the front. Move it to the far side to Ely. He fakes the high release. Lips is very keen to break that mark, attack the defense. Not content with taking what's given, wanting to dictate. Another bid from Hammond, leaves Lochnan open, and a blade straight into the chest of Cam Lyon.
Straight into the chest with, I think, a little bit of a fall over there from Cammy Lyon. Don't know if that was intentional or not. That was a very cool, I think, and calm and collected offense there from Ellipsis. They weren't forcing anything, and I think that's the offense that we need to see, because Mammoth are going to try and force them to throw the disc and force turnovers by making them take options that probably aren't on.
I think even if Lyon hadn't managed to close his hands around that one, that disc would have embedded itself a couple of inches in his chest regardless.
There was a lot of shape on that one. There was a lot of shape on that one.
Came in with a fair bit of pace behind it. But safe as houses in Ellipsis, keep it even, 2 apiece in these early stages.
It's going to be exciting to see when the first turn happens. We haven't had a turn yet this game in 4 points. It's been very clinical offense. Some of it a bit scrappy, but clinical offense, and each team just collecting and taking the score. So it'll be very interesting to see who gets the first, to Cook, to Permac. Looks like a little bit of a zoney play there from Ellipsis, but opens up the space to Grimmage down this far sideline. He calls Gaunt in, but pushes him back, and Vo to Grimmond with a few give-goes. Back with Cook. Finds Permac again. Back to Cook. In the middle to Vo. To Cook again. To Grimmond. They're very happy just working it up. Little dishy to Vo. Finds Cook. To Permac. To Vo. To Permac. The three of them just very, very happy to give go between themselves, take as many passes as they need. Permac back to Cook. Vo just hanging out in the middle space.
This is an interesting defensive look from Ellipsis. They're not really putting a lot of pressure on those resets, trying to just contain the offense.
Certainly are, which they have done really well. Mammoth just got a sneaky one through the middle there, which got them some gainers of yards. Vo knocking on the door. Grimmond scores. Mammoth take another one.
And that's a reversal of the connection that got them Mammoth's last goal. That last one being Grimmond to Vo, this time
Vo to
returned the favour. Grimmond so far involved in every score for the Brisbane team. 2 assists and a goal to his name. Clearly a handful for Ellipsis defence.
I mean, those are some good stats to have on the board next to your name, isn't it, Max?
Oh, look, you know you're doing something right when you've thrown or caught every goal on your team.
Interesting, I think, that Ellipsis brought out a zone so early, and that it looks like they're really willing to try multiple options to try and slow down that Mammoth offense, and that, you know, throughout the game I think we might see multiple other options on defensive structures, and just to see, you know, chuck everything at it. This is the game to do it.
And I think certainly in these early parts, it's often a case of feeling out your opposition, trying a few different defensive looks, see what's getting you traction, what's working, and what isn't really, and then starting to dial that in and tighten it up specific for the opposition that you're playing. So Ellipsis, led by Cron Hudson as the coach, obviously in that phase still, figuring out what's going to work for them, trying a few different looks. But I think they can take from that one that Mammoth more than comfortable playing patient through that zone. It'll be John McNaughton as he takes the field for the first time. This year taking on a coaching role with Mammoth, long-time captain of the team. Releases his lefty Paul, and Ellipsis will continue to work out of their horizontal. With 2 very deep wing players. Zolder Lockman goes up line to Andrews, marked by Perry. 2 of the faster men on the field, and I'd argue at the tournament. The round forehand from Andrews.
There's the first turn, the errant throw, Max.
The chink in the armour, it's real. The offense is perfect, and McNaughton looks to strike quickly. The huge hammer, and Scott Perry gets 2 looks at it, but can't complete on either.
The first 2 turnovers, they give it straight back, Max. I didn't think that this would be something we'd very readily see. That was a great, almost a second bid there from Scott Perry.
Maybe a little aggressive from McNaughton. That was a great opportunity, and I can't imagine they'll get a lot of them against an offense of this quality. Can't expect cheap turnovers like that to keep coming. And to throw it away with very, very aggressive early shot. Maybe not the best choice is Tulip. Shoots back the other way. He has Ely, Perry, and Murray all underneath it, and no one comes down with it. The sandwich of Mammoth was enough.
Scott Perry had a great closing speed on that, though. When you look at the separation that Pete Ely had on his cut already, and then how quickly Scott Perry closes back in to be able to get, at least provide some pressure on that grab.
And while it was Ely that got first hand to it, just the presence of the two big blue-shirted bodies around him, clearly enough, as McNaughton and Leask will take on the handling duties as Perry looks to shoot deep, and the throw comes. It's arcing over his left shoulder, and he misreads that terribly. Goes up far too early.
That's so unfortunate. That was a horrible misread. He was almost put off a bit there by Cameron Lyon on the chase. Bid too early, realised that it wasn't quite the right timing, and then was too late to go again. And turns really do come in droughts and floods. And that's the third one for this point. And Ellipsis, offense. Get a third chance. You don't expect them to get a lot of those. Lochnan, despite his young age, having recently played Australian juniors over in Canada, inserting the veteran cool that you might expect, or that you wouldn't expect from someone of his age. They're about 15 metres out. Throws the around flick to centre the disc and reset the stall count. Got a pick call. We saw Tulit express his frustration with his teammates. A little shouting at point. The offense, not how he likes it. There just hasn't been enough options coming from that stack there, Max. It seems to be very handler initiated, and they really need to get some cuts happening to actually get movement. And again, looking to attack off the front of the stack. Evans, Tulit goes up. He's just on the doorstep now. A lot of players cutting into a lot of small spaces, but it's Cam Lyon who notches up his second for the game. And Ellipsis managed to get their hold despite a number of turnovers. That was a really interesting point there, Max. I thought that the first turn was going to be so hard fought to get, and then once it was had, that the teams would highly treasure the disc. It seems that I think once that turn came, everyone just got a little bit too excited, and there were some errant throws, some throwaways that happened just due to misreads and people just getting a little bit, huck happy. So yeah, 3-all, Ellipsis hold that one, and we haven't got that break yet. No breaks yet, but Mammoth has to be happy with their defense at that point. Getting multiple breaks out of an Ellipsis O-line in 1 point is a big win for them. Obviously, they'll be going away. I can see them on the sideline right now. That line's having a chat about what happens after the turn. Exactly. Those opportunities have to be seized upon if you want to go deep in this tournament and consistently beat excellent teams like Ellipsis is. Oh, it's 100%, Max. Defense wins games. Copland with the pull again. A little bit flatter than what we saw previously. Received by Seb Brown to Permac. Finds Grimmond in the middle, choosing to play downfield this point. To Spielman. To Rob de Hollander. To Grimmond on the far sideline. Got Spielman streaming deep, but chooses to not throw to him. Loses a lot of ground there to Permac. To Cook in the centre-ish of the field. Finds de Hollander through the middle. He's looking back for a dump to Grimmond and then back to Cook again. Mammoth just happy, moving it amongst themselves. To Grimmond on the nice inside there, to Permac on the top sideline. Grimmond goes down the line, not utilised. Cook goes down the line and gets a small one. He's looking for the round and then throws it under. Spielman got a hand on that, but I didn't quite see what happened there. Let's watch the replay. He does get a hand on it by the look of it, but just simply can't hold on. Copland on his shoulder, but nothing untoward. And Ellipsis now. They get their first look at a break. And it'll be young Tom Boyle. Ellipsis putting a lot of faith in young handlers as he shoots early, shows he's got a cannon despite the young age. It's 2-on-1. Sam McGuckin! And he brings it down. Goes upstairs, tears it out of the sky. And C calls the timeout. Oh, what a point, Max. This is where the exciting stuff now happens. That was a great huck deep from Tommy Boyle. He had a perfect amount of float on it, and Sam McGuckin read that beautifully.
It was a 2-on-1 situation, but he, as you say, reads it like a book, goes up and comes down with the disc as you'd expect. So having a look at that earlier bid. But I want to have a chat about Tom Boyle. I mean, he's one of the younger guys on the field. He may even be the youngest player on this Ellipsis squad, but clearly given a really significant position of trust on their D-line. He's the anchor handler. He's the one picking it up after a turn, and you can see why with throws like that.
100%. I mean, he did came through the Ballarat Ultimate Club, dare I say, grassroots program, and was developed beautifully through their players there, and played on I don't know if it was 1 or 2 Thunder campaigns. 2 Thunder campaigns, I think that was, and it's just opened up the door for him to do bigger and better things. He's on the Goannas this year, and you can absolutely see why with plays like that.
He was instrumental in the Goannas' success over in New Zealand just a couple of weeks ago, and you can see he'll set himself up here in the dump space as Ellipsis look to isolate one player in that lane, giving C plenty of options to work with.
Just a bit of discussion happening about, I think, the stall count. Disc is in. Dumps back to Boyle. Loses a little bit of ground, but not phased. He's faking. He's dumping back to C on that far sideline now, and they're looking a little bit trapped. Throws the around to Copland. Finds McGuckin. He wants the dump straight away. Oh, a little bit of a body check there from Permac. The inside break to Boyle, and there is a pick called in the stack. Ellipsis really moving the disc through their handlers there. Not many downfield options occurring. It seems to be going down the line, dump, or around to the fill. I don't know if that's on purpose or if their stack just is not moving. McGuckin with the disc, looks open side, it's covered, dumps back to Boyle. Boyle looks open side, threads the inside to Austin. He then looks back for the dump to McGuckin. Open side dump to Boyle, who then throws the inside to, and outstrips Copland, and Ellipsis get the first break.
And that was incredible display of patience from the Ellipsis handlers. As you say, not a lot of stuff being generated out of the stack at first, but incredible patience from that back 3 or 4 core of players, recycling the disc, maintaining position, changing the angle of attack, and eventually Copland provides that cut from the back of the stack to the front corner, and a nice catch to finish it off. Ellipsis, as you say, draw blood as they get their first break to go up 4-3.
Outstretched Grimmin there as well. He completely bid for that, but Copland just had the couple of steps on him, and there was unfortunately nothing Grimmin could do to prevent that break from occurring at that point in time.
No, I know Timocles Copland has put a lot of work in the gym and on the track this season and in the pre-season before it, and it's showing. He's clearly in great shape, and it got some real pace to work with, which is evident. Getting even 1 or 2 steps open on Liam Grimond isn't no easy feat.
I'll hope you don't know that one from experience there, Max.
I haven't had that misfortune too many times to be marked by Liam Grimond, but when I have, it's not an enjoyable experience.
So Ellipsis here, D-line gets to stay out in the field.
They do, but they've brought across Rob Andrews to add a little bit more firepower into this D-line, I guess, hoping to continue that role. And that's a huge pull.
That's a huge pull.
It's fielded by Permac to Cook. Spielman looks to provide that first deep option, but the throw doesn't come. And they'll work around at the back as Permac gets it again. Oh, and great tight defense in the end zone, and Cook has to leave his feet and dig that one out with a nice grab. Permac now on this far side. Mammoth really struggling to generate much upfield. Has to go crossfield blade, finds Grimmond in the center. Cook in front of the bid. Oh, now it finds Cook as they move it to the far sideline. And And now they find Permack once more. Back to Grimond. You'd expect him to assert himself a little more as the pressure builds. To Gaunt. Vo, marked by his Barramundi teammate Matthews Hunter. Eventually breaks round, finds Grimond. And Cook leaves his feet but can't hold on. You can see the pressure that the Ellipsis defense applied that point. Every pass was contested, and eventually they cough up the disc.
Almost seems like a little bit of change of pace in terms of the first couple of points. The Ellipsis defense has really clamped down, and the Mammoth seem to be really struggling to find anything. Outstretched Grimond there. Just couldn't quite get the D on Meyer. McGuckin has it, and he puts it up, and he's got Andrews underneath it. But Vo gets a hand to it first.
And what started off as a champagne game of clinical ultimate has quickly turned into a turnover field slogfest.
Guess that that is what happens when you have two teams of such a high caliber that want the win so bad. They're just going to work and grind and grind and grind to try and get those points on the board, and that unfortunately means that you're going to have, multiple turns that happen. And it looks as if Mammoth has just called their first time out of the game.
Clearly feeling the pressure of this long point and recognising the need and the importance of putting the disc in right here.
What do you think are the things that they're going to talk about in regards to the Mammoth offensive structure in this timeout there, Max?
I think in this kind of a situation where clearly the downfield's been struggling to generate options and there hasn't been a lot opening up, it's about providing clarity to that offense. So you'll want to call your structure, make sure everyone's on the same page in terms of what that looks like, nominate your first cutters or whatever that structure may be, but providing clarity to your players to know where the options are going to be and where to look as the throwers is the first step to making sure that they can start to march that disc the full 70 yards.
100%, Max. I think it also comes down to a bit of communication. There just almost seems as if there's been a little bit of lack of communication on the Mammoth offence's part. They either have a few options or they have no options. And so they need to communicate amongst themselves who's cutting when, I'm cutting here, you're cutting there. And then hopefully that will open up the options for them.
And we'll see whether they've taken our advice or taken someone else's. It'll be Cook with the disc. And Mammoth setting up in a horizontal stack. And Ellipsis look like they'll be playing relatively honest in return. So nothing too fancy structurally to get things back underway. And it'll be Spielman and Gaunt in the centre with Bonnie on this near side wing to get things started for Mammoth. Spielman can't provide the first option. And already Mammoth forced to go backwards. Not a lot open. Desperation flick.
Oh.
And Ellipsis will capitalise quickly.
That's the second break.
As Harsha finds Copland and Ellipsis.
Harsha with the intercepts. Cook just didn't have almost no downfield options there. He was very, very limited. And so he, just put it out into space for Spielman, hoping Spielman could get onto that. And Harsha read it like a book, came through with the clean D there and just popped it straight in.
Very much a stall 9 throw from Cook. Not all, his options had dried up and he spun back forwards and saw Spielman coming underneath and just tried to lead him out in front. And as you say, Harsha saw it coming a mile off and was ready to pounce. And Ellipsis, they're out to 5-3.
Could almost see the desperation on Elliot Cook's face there as he was realising that that stall count was going up. His dump was not able to get free and his options were very, very limited. Mammoth offense going to have to really work hard to generate the downfield movement that they were lacking in those past couple of points.
And you feel that this success from Ellipsis in the last couple of points has been built on a step up, a notch up in the intensity of their defense. In the first couple of points, Mammoth was able to generate continuously underneath and provide options to keep that disc moving. We commented on how easily they seem to move the disc around. And now Ellipsis has changed to that, and all of a sudden Mammoth look really uncomfortable when they have the disc.
Props to Ellipsis though for being able to make those adjustments to stop the Mammoth offense, which seemed to be having just such an easy time out there on the field. So the pool will be fielded by Permack, but it's bricked.
It's an interesting question when you think about that tactical battle. How much of an advantage is it for Ellipsis to have Cron Hudson as an off-field coach, whereas Mammoth purely on-field players, they don't have a dedicated full-time coach. And does that impact their ability to adapt when Ellipsis continually changes up their look?
That certainly is, I think, a contributing factor, and I think it's something that's been seen with multiple other teams throughout the tournament thus far, is that off-field coaches are becoming more popular due to the insight that they can provide. Bonnie on the far sideline finds McNaughton under, and he looks like he wanted to punt it to very deep, but doesn't. Spielman to Bonnie now on the close sideline. Offense looking a little bit cleaner. Back to Spielman in the center of the field. He hasn't got many options though, and hits Thomas Vale on the break. Now to Bonnie on this sideline, but I think there might have been a pick call in the stack, but it didn't affect, so Bonnie looks like he's going to keep it there.
And about 15 metres out, Mammoth in a lovely position now. They've found their flow on offense again. We'll see if they can continue it.
Bonnie looking for his options, wants Vo down the sideline but can't get him, so he hits McNaughton on the dump. To Seb Brown, just on the inside break. Seb Brown's looking, he wants it. He hits Thomas Vo again on the nice flick, and then he wants the around backhand but can't get it. To Permac now, who's got little options, hits Brown again and has Bonnie streaming on the open. Mammoth hold that one, but they're still down one break, so their defense is going to have to come out and work really, really hard to try and get that one back.
They will at 5-4 down. It's certainly within reaching distance. It's not panic stations yet for Mammoth, but their offense will need to continue to punch them in with that kind of patience and discipline if they're going to be able to find those opportunities for breaks to level the score.
Yeah, in terms of Mammoth's defense, I think that they certainly need to try and clamp down a bit more on the quick turns. Ellipsis have been really capitalising on when a turn is generated, picking up the disc quickly and hitting the long, like they have someone streaming long every time, and they're hitting that. And at the moment, Mammoth just can't seem to be keeping up with that level of pace in the past couple of points.
And that's both a physical challenge, obviously a bunch of really talented athletes on the Ellipsis roster, but also a mental one, as you say, after that turn, not spending time worrying about it. It's a simple lesson that gets taught to a lot of new players, but to implement it really effectively is actually quite a challenge. And as you say, Ellipsis capitalising on just those few moments when Mammoth are caught thinking about their mistakes rather than thinking about what happens next. It's Malenfant with the pull as the wind picks up a little bit, and it's coming a bit more right to left now, so Ellipsis will be going slightly downwind this point. And operating out of a side stack with Andrews out in the lane. It's a good first look. They find him eventually on this near side. And he fires one down the line to Ely. Lyon. And now Phillip burns up line. Gets a couple of metres on Malenfant. And that's possibly Ellipsis' easiest offensive point this game.
That seemed almost far too easy. It almost was as if Mammoth's defense just wasn't quite there, wasn't quite aware of what was happening. I thought, because Ellipsis came out in the side stack and the Mammoth boys were all set up in the center of the field, I thought it was almost going to be a bit of a zone play. But after the first couple of passes, everyone manned up relatively quickly, but those options were just still very, very open there for Ellipsis to just kind of go down the sideline, 3 passes, and that's a goal. So that stretches the lead back out to 2, but Ellipsis up by 2 to 6-4. The points are happening a lot quicker than what I would have thought they would coming into this game. I definitely thought they would have been a lot more hard fought for.
I mean, and I think we've seen patches of both. The first couple of points of the game, the first 4 points, very clinical, not a turn to be seen. Kind of that champagne ultimate you might expect. But then, as you say, we got into this patch of suddenly really scrappy play, turnovers coming in floods and droughts, and all of a sudden points were dragging out. A lot of turnovers, a bit more scrappy. Defenses really able to lock in, and now possibly a shifting back as the momentum goes back the other way. Mammoth's offense will be tested.
Yeah, Cook with the disc now. He throws it out to the break. Rob de Hollander only just got there because it looked like he wasn't cutting in that direction. He went to try and hit Grimond, but he was covered, and an outstretched Grimond gets that dump. Finds the around to Cal Spielman. Plenty of time to run to that one, and Permac on the under. Being marked by Lee. Dumps it to Grimond, back to Permac. Spielman's going deep, but he's looked off.
When he had separation too, that shot looked on.
Cook now on the far sideline, looks for the dump. Permac takes the backwards dump. Then he throws it out to what looked to be Bonnie, but Harsha just ate that one up. Here we are to Howard, who puts it out into space, and Meyer underneath it.
And that is a simple miscommunication from Mammoth, as you say, being punished with pace. There was no hesitation from Ellipsis. They looked to move that immediately, and they were ruthless with it.
Yeah, exactly. No hesitation there from Ellipsis, but it definitely seemed like that turnover was caused by a miscommunication from Mammoth. Bond came for what looked like he was going to be cutting into the swing space, and so Permac stepped around and put the around backhand, and then only to realise that Bond had either stopped cutting or went to go change direction into that space, and Harsha again read it like a book, so exactly what was happening, and just came through with the run 3D.
And that is that lack of clarity maybe in that Mammoth offense rearing its head once more. You're not quite sure where that next option is going to be and where to look for it. And you can see the results.
Happened twice in that point. Only Rob de Hollander was a little bit more switched on and changed direction back very quickly and just caught it inside the sideline. So the Mammoth offense is definitely going to have a few chats about communication and clarity about where they're cutting and what exactly they're doing on offense.
And all of a sudden, 3 breaks up, Ellipsis in a really commanding position at 7-4, knocking on the door of half-time. And again, they've brought Andrews across to the D-line. Seems like this is their standard move when they get a break. For the next line, Andrews will come across and try to capitalise on that.
That is a huge pull.
It's going to sit beautifully as well, but... Oh, and it'll be taken from the back of the end zone. Liam Grimond misjudges it. He thought it was going to land out, and it doesn't. And they're now playing the full 100 metres.
They're in Callahan country here, Max.
Oh, and another miscommunication. And it is saved by some heroics from Callan Spielman. But you can see the kind of pressure they're under. Grimond thinks about shooting long. Instead, looks back for his Goanna teammate Cook and finds de Hollander up line, the big boy. Will dump it back to Vo. The swing to Spielman. Move it up to that far side.
Seb Brown just couldn't quite get there. Just put out too far in front. Couldn't quite get there. Had a very late bid on that as well.
And Ellipsis get another look at breaking to take half.
Yeah, getting to knock on half-time's door.
Andrews will provide that initiating cut, as he so regularly does. Andrews C leaves his feet but can't hold on to the wayward pass. And Brown looks to move the pace quickly himself as he picks up Spielman. Vo at the front of stack. Finds Grimond. Cook, he'll fire long. He's looking for Grimond. It's way out in front. And it's too far. Very flat. Not a lot of touch on that throw.
You know it's too far when even Liam Grimond doesn't bid for it, Max.
And that's just a really tricky option from Elliot Cook. I mean, clearly the pressure's getting to him when he's taking a shot that's pretty much over the head of his receiver in a direct line behind him. You know, as a coach, if Mammoth had one, they'd be shaking their head at that option choice.
100%. That's also a really hard throw to put touch on, that inside flick. It takes a lot of skill to be able to put a certain level of touch on that one, so it does have float to it. And generally speaking, if you're not confident, that one's going to just bullet out of your hand.
That's exactly what happened just there as Matthews Hunter goes up line to Cusson, the young athlete, as he injects himself for the first time this match. And Ellipsis start to get a little crowded in and around the disc. Matthews Hunter provides the outlet, moves it to this near side. C in the centre. He's firing long for Cusson, but it's out the side. And Ellipsis give the disc straight back. Totally unforced error.
A little bit of an uncharacteristic overthrow there, and it looked like Cusson didn't even think that that one was for him. Just kind of looked at it as it faded over his head. Elliot Cook with the disc now. Backwards dump to Seb Brown, to Rob de Hollander in the centre of the field. Not a lot of options happening. John McNaughton on this close sideline to Thomas Vo. He's got Liam Grimman going down field but chooses not to hit him. Finds Cook on the under. To Seb Brown again on this sideline. To Cal Spielman on this sideline, but I think there's a pick call in the stack by the looks of it.
He will retain possession, but Andrews will have an opportunity to make up some of the metres. And play will restart.
He's needing to find an option now. Goes down the line, finds Cook. He's looking, throws the around to Spielman. There's not much happening downfield here for Mammoth. Needing an option to move. John McNaughton provides the around. He wants to throw the break but doesn't have an option there. Throws the inside break to Spielman. That was quite clinical from the Mammoth defense, from the Mammoth offense rather. And it looked like almost a set play. It looked like something they potentially practiced before.
It was clinical eventually, but it took them a couple of tries to get there. Another multi-turn point, but Mammoth do get the hold. They still have plenty of work to do, down 7-5, and clearly showing the chinks in their armour.
That's exactly right. Down 7-5, and if they let one more go, Ellipsis take half. And so it's going to be a lot harder to come back from that than it is, you know, coming down from 8-5 and knowing that you lost half. Can sometimes play a big game mentally.
And the mental game really is a big part of this match. We've talked about it earlier about the significance of this game, winning it, dictating the semi-final matchup, and the winner of this game will play I-Beam tomorrow in a quarter-final, whereas the loser will have a slightly tougher crossover with Heads of State juggernaut from Melbourne.
Big pull there from Elephant. Fielded by Hill to Tullett. He winds up but doesn't take it. Evans providing an option but sees Andrews on the break side. Being marked by Joel Cook. Finds Hill again. Oh, Phillip on the falling over catch to Evans. Quick one to Tullett with Andrews deep. Tullett punts it. Receives it there, Andrews, right on the chest. Ellipsis take half.
And that was a lovely offensive display from them that point. They used the full width of the field. They dump and swing the disc. Waited till they got their receiver of choice going deep and the disc in the hands of their thrower of choice. And that Tullett to Andrews connection has paid dividends in the past for Colony, where they both used to play. And it's clearly paying dividends here in the green and white.
Those are the type of connections that you want to have amongst your players as well. Knowing that they have past connections at Colony is certainly going to be a bit of a sweet spot coming into the Ellipsis team, and knowing that there are other players with similar types of connections is only going to strengthen their structures.
And there was a concern coming into this weekend about this team that how much, or was there reliance on Tom Tullett and Rob Andrews too much? Did it make them one-dimensional? Did it mean that if one of them was having a bad game, the whole team was going to be off kilter? And essentially right now, we're not getting an answer to that question because they're both totally firing on all cylinders. And you can see how effective it is. Andrews crossing over to the D-line, adding extra firepower there, and both of them connecting beautifully on offense, as we saw in that last point. So
I think when you look at the stats of this game thus far, though, Max, I don't think you could happily say that there is a big reliance on Tullett and Rob Andrews. The scoring, the goals scored by individuals is quite widespread. across the team. There are multiple individuals that have got some chalk on the board there, and multiple individuals that have gotten the receiver, the thrower for that. So the assist on that one. So I think that it's very widespread, and that shows then that they're using and utilising multiple members of their team.
And you're right, they certainly are. There's a couple of players with 2 goals to their names, Cam Lyon and Tim Cleese-Copland, both getting a pair. And on the other side of things, however, Mammoth, they've been sharing it around a little bit as well. As we mentioned earlier, Grimmond, pair of assists to go with the goal, and Lachlan Bonney, a target of choice with 2 goals to his name. But as the players take a quick breather and a break, so will we. But don't go anywhere as we bring you plenty more action from the Australian Ultimate Championships. Australian Ultimate Championships. Let's go, boys. Come on, D. We're live in Townsville, Queensland. And it's a hell of a game in front of us. Welcome back. And welcome back to the Australian Ultimate Championships here in Townsville, Queensland. It's been a great first half between Brisbane Mammoth and Melbourne Ellipsis. Looked really tight early on, Oakley, but then the floodgates opened and Ellipsis leading 8-5. Tell us how we got here.
Yeah, it was a really interesting first half. It traded for the first few points with, I think, it going 3-all, and then just a couple of errant throwaways, run through Ds from the Ellipsis boys, and they weren't going to give that opportunity back, and here we are, 8-5.
It really was an impressive display of defence from Ellipsis in the back half of that first period of the game.
A couple of scrappy points there in the middle where there were multiple turnovers from each team, but Ellipsis have just shown to be a little bit more clinical now. coming towards the middle portion of this game.
And we see the significance of this point for Mammoth. John McNaughton and Thomas Vo, both players who played a lot of offensive points, coming across to play D, trying to make an impact early in the second half.
It's exactly right. Tullett with the disc, finds Hill on the far sideline. He looks deep but doesn't put it. Finds Tullett again in the centre of the field. Not much happening. Has Andrews going deep, but not much separation. Phillip on this close sideline. He's being closely marked by Jinx there. Lochner with the disc is looking and hits the inside flick to Peter Ely. Tightly marked, looking for an option. Fake, fake, fake. Phillip just picks it up on that far sideline. He's looking for an option and can't hit the around backhand dump, but finds Tullett just down the line there. Got a little bit of separation from Leask on that cut. Throws the around to Phillip, who can't hit the swing, so hits Tullett again and finds Lochner. The Ellipsis handlers here doing a lot of work to generate the movement there, Max.
They are. It really feels like it's predominantly Andrews providing that downfield option. And the rest of the time they're having to go sideways a lot, which I guess is a win for Mammoth, but they haven't been able to generate a turnover yet.
Lochner tries to hit the inside and can't. Tullett being really closely guarded there by Leask, but he manages to find that dump. Lost a little bit of ground on that. Oh, hits Andrews on that far sideline. An outstretched Maleficent, who I think the disc has been called out.
It was a huge bid from Maleficent on Andrews. That's the second big sniff he's had, and they'll have the discussion about whether it was in or out. We do have a couple of game advisors helping us this match, and they'll provide their perspective as we get another perspective on that bid. Big effort from Jonah Maleficent. It's hard to tell about the feet from this angle on the stream, but play will restart with the disc in the hands of Rob Andrews.
Rob Andrews trying to find Tullett on the dump. He's being so tightly marked by Leask, but he manages to get it in the centre of the field, and then he swings around to Phillip, who's got Jinx marking him. Leask doing an amazing job on the dump there, nearly gets the D. Tullett hits the around backhand to Andrews on this close sideline. Throws the around. Peter Ely, thank you very much.
Wow, what a point. I mean, in the end, Ellipsis keep their call and throw what is a relatively regulation pass for the goal, but a lot of close looks for the Mammoth defense.
I think Alex Leask needs to be so ridiculously proud of that dump defense there on Tullett. He made him work so hard for every single pass he got there, and I think that the want and the grit of Mammoth showed in that point.
And that's the kind of defense that we expect from Mammoth. You know, every single player going at it as hard as they can the whole point and maintaining that intensity throughout. And that was what we saw from Alex Leask at that point. And that's what we need to see from not just him, but the whole roster continuously to get turns on Ellipsis offense. They can suck up that pressure for a lot of time, and you've really got to continually build it over the course of a match, not just a couple of points, to generate the turns that they're going to need to come back from this game.
The Mammoth defense did do very well downfield to prevent the advancing of the disc, making the handlers dump and swing, and then Andrews trying to provide those cuts where he could. So Mammoth's defense certainly did very well. They just need to clamp down, and because there were so many breaks coming off throughout that point, they need to clamp down to prevent those around breaks occurring.
And that around break from Andrews, fat side of the field to Ely. I mean, that's a cut we've seen Ely make 1,000 times before, and a goal that we've seen him catch 1,000 times before. Usually in a different uniform. We saw him do it a lot for Colony and in the green and gold before, but it's something that he's got nailed and the timing perfect, and you can see how effective it is. That's Cook as he finds De Hollander in the centre of the field. Doesn't have a lot opening up for him, so he'll dump it back to Cook. Bonnie and Vo provide options, and Cook breaks the mark to this near side. And a wayward forehand just straight into the turf. Grimman leaves his feet, but the throw well off its target. As Harsha picks back up, comes near side to Lee.
This Mammoth defense has really picked up again.
As Matthews Hunter goes hammer over the top. He's got players underneath. It's Spielman, but it's Sam McGuckin who plucks it with his left hand. And Mammoth can do nothing but congratulate him on a hell of a catch and say to the young Sam McGuckin, why did you ever leave Brisbane and head south?
If you were Mammoth right now, you'd certainly be questioning exactly why you'd let Sam McGuckin go. That was some great defense from Mammoth, though. They really clamped down. There weren't as many break options. The unfortunate thing is that when those overhead hammers go up, there's just not much you can do to stop them.
There really isn't much you can do to prevent the throw going up. And Mammoth did well to get two defenders in the vicinity as Spielman and Malenfant got involved and had a look. But it was Sam McGuckin who comes down with it, and that's what matters. As Ellipsis get another break on their board and extend their lead to 5. It's 10-5. Ellipsis in a commanding position.
Ellipsis have really taken control of this game now, really stamping and making their mark on this game. And I think that Mammoth definitely have a lot of work cut out for them if they even want to stay close to Ellipsis and still have a sniff at the win of this game.
There is plenty of work for them ahead, as their O-line in particular has struggled to consistently put the disc in. That last point, they gave up possession relatively easily. A lot of unforced errors and just errant throws. We saw Thomas Vo just throw it into the turf, really, on a regulation 12-metre forehand.
Yep. Copland with a big arcing pull there. Seb Brown lets it ground before picking it up and dishing to Cook, who then hits McNaughton, who wants the big but doesn't hit it, so hits Vo on the under. Grimmond now on this close sideline. He goes for the around, but doesn't really have many options. Goes to hit Vo, but outstretched Cusson gets that D. Ellipsis defense showing that they want it more, and they're not gonna let Mammoth have it easily.
Dan Cusson, one of the fastest, most explosive players around. I mean, he's an ex-track athlete. He's run a 10.8 over the 100 metres. So some serious raw speed at his disposal when he needs it.
Harsher picking up the disc now, being marked by Seb Brown, hits the inside to Copland. Has Walker streaming deep, but chooses not to hit that option. Back dump to Harsher, loses a bit of ground, but they don't seem phased by that. And he hits the inside to outstretch Boyle.
Jeez, he's got long arms. I didn't think he was getting that as he shoots Blade across field.
And hits Dan Cusson. Ellipsis just showing exactly what they can do, and boy, they're making it look easy.
They are now. The momentum's on their side, and their defense line maybe came into this game with something to prove, and they've really proven it already. As they celebrate in their typical and unusual style.
Timeout called there from Mammoth captain and coach John McNaughton. If you were inside that Mammoth huddle there right now, Max, what types of things do you think that we'd be hearing?
I mean, there's obviously lots of tactical and strategic things that need to be tweaked and that they will have to tweak if they're going to progress this game and come away with the win. But when you're down this kind of a deficit and with this much of a hole to dig yourself out of, it's all about effort. It's got to be that mental aspect that they're focusing on. They're resetting. They've got to have belief that they can get the next point. They need their offense to start holding the offenses when they get them, and then give their defense time to do what we know their defense can do, but just hasn't had a lot of chances to do, and that's build up and ramp up pressure over the course of multiple points. So they need to reset mentally, refocus on their objectives, and go and execute on that plan. Something that they know they can do and they have the talent to do, but haven't been able to find the rhythm of quite this match.
So exactly right, Max. We've seen what Mammoth are capable of thus far throughout the tournament, and a lot of their pool play games, we've seen them hit their peak and hit their stride. So we know that Mammoth are capable of a lot more than what we're being shown right now, and it's just hoping that they can hit that and they can find that sweet spot and really play some good ultimate and potentially stretch this game out a bit more.
I mean, I think from an Ellipsis perspective, they've got to be pretty happy with where they're at. They're firing on all cylinders. Not just their offense, but their defense is playing brilliantly too. They're getting the turns. They're converting them into goals. And as you said earlier, their whole roster is contributing. We look down at that sheet with the stats on it, and it's not a list of A's of goals next to Andrews and assists next to Tullett. They're obviously playing their part, but every single player on this Ellipsis roster is contributing so far. And I think that's a crucial step for them as they look forward to tomorrow and then Sunday after that.
That's certainly something to be proud of as a team as well, because in those more crucial games, you don't want to have to rely heavily on the same 2 or 3 people. Knowing that you can rely on the whole team is something which is just amazing as well. Copland went up with the pull, fielded by Cook, was slightly shorter than normal. He goes to hit the deep but can't hit it, so finds Permac to Seb Brown. Bonnie provides an under, but doesn't get hit, and Permac gets hit in the dump. Back to Brown, to Permac again. They're finally gaining some downfield momentum, but their cutters just aren't doing enough work. Brown with the disc again. Cook trying to provide an option on the inside, but there was a pick call on that one. Discussion will occur whether it affected the play or not.
And as we've said quite a few times this match, struggling to generate big cuts from the downfield players, more relying on handlers and stuff coming off the front of the stack and smearing, as we see from there, that exact cut from Spielman from the front of the stack onto the break side.
So Permac hits Gaunt in the center of the field, has Spielman going deep, but doesn't hit him again. Bonnie's now going deep, and up it goes. And beautifully put there from Grimmin. That's reminiscent of the very first point of the game there, Max.
So that same 2 players in a beautiful pass. Very similar throw as well from Grimmin. That forehand floats it beautifully onto his target.
He's really perfected that one. In this wind, that sailed perfectly. The wind isn't playing a huge factor right now in this game, but you can still feel it's there. But he just put the perfect amount of float on that. Bonnie got the right amount of separation there from his defender, and up it went, ran onto it. I don't think there was much Ellipsis could do to stop that one.
No, and it's not quite on camera, but what I think Bonnie did really excellently there, that maybe Mammoth has been letting slip out of their game a little bit this match, was he set up his cut well. I've seen a lot of Mammoth foot racing out of the stack, off the front, just into a space. Bonnie did the hard work, took his player, Andrew C, a couple of hard steps under, turned, put on the jets, went deep, had the separation that gave Grimmin the confidence to unleash that beautiful throw.
And the one thing that Bonnie did there perfectly was he saw the cut from Grimmin occurring to receive from Gaunt and started his deep cut then. So he already had that separation and that lead time occurring by the time Grimmin saw him going deep.
And that's the kind of stuff that we expect out of Mammoth. They're a very well-drilled team, I should say, across the board.
It's a big brick pull there from John McNaughton. Fielded, collected by Tullett. Bit of a walk back to the center of the field there, Max.
Certainly is, and it'll give them plenty of time to set up. This is their one of their 2 main offensive pool play looks we've seen. The side stack, every time previously it's been Rob Andrews, it's been the primary cutter, and as he sets up at the back of the stack, I imagine it could well be him again. This time, however, Mammoth don't have a player helping out in the lane. It looks like they'll be playing pretty honest.
They got burnt last time, so it almost makes you think, why would you do it again?
Andrews with the disc as he finds Phillip and gets it straight back. He's marked by Perry. See whether Perry can do much to contain him. As Stu Jinks doesn't actually get the block, pulls out of fear of making contact, and in the end, neither player actually touches the disc. McNaughton now shoots a backhand. He's got Leask underneath it. 2 or 3 players in pursuit. But it's Rob Andrews who rules the air paths today. Goes up over Leask and Tullett and swats it out of the sky.
Ellipsis with a great hustle there on defense. They almost had 3 men in that end zone for that big shot, and that just shows the grit, the determination. If they want that D, and they're going to work hard to get it.
Andrews and Ely on either side of the stack get things moving early, but it's Cam Lyon provides the option onto the break side of the field. It's Mammoth try and contain Ellipsis' offense into the center of the field. Loughnane and Ely playing catch as Ely finally finds a mark as Hammond tightens up. And we've got a foul call. Chula and Leask go chest to chest, mano a mano, and Leask ends up on the ground.
A little bit of a body check there, keeping it honest.
And I think they'll contest the call. I'm not sure if it has much of an impact on what happened downfield, and they'll agree it doesn't. The disc remains with Albie Evans. And it'll be Stu Jinks. He'll check it back in, bringing height and wingspan to the mark. See whether it can trouble Evans. Loughnane goes immediately deep, but it's Phillip who provides the dump pass. It gets rewarded with a throw. So he goes back around as this battle between Alex Leask and Tom Chula continues. It's been fireworks all game long. And Loughnane, not a lot opening up downfield. Inside break, finds Peter Ely. And he looks to break the mark again. Well done by Hammond, contains him.
Mammoth defense are doing well to keep the handlers swinging and swinging again. They're really containing those downfield options, but those breaks are hurting them.
And Chulett fires Peter Ely. And I mean, what can Mammoth do? They've played incredibly tight defense on Chulett that whole point, put heaps of pressure on him. Credit to Alex Leask there. And in the end, he throws a throw like that, nigh on unguardable.
There is little you can do. It seemed as if someone from Mammoth did try and peel off from the back of the stack there to try and cover that, but it was just too late. By the time the throw was in the air, if you watch the replay here, where Pete Ely hits Toolett and then hits that downfield space, by the time the throw comes up, Hammond's not in position. I think Jonah Maliphant tried to peel off the back of the stack, but it was just too late for him to do anything about it. And the Mammoth defense did so well to contain those downfield options, but when it's coming from a handler cut, what can you do, Max?
It's very tricky. It's very tricky, and I think right now Mammoth haven't got the answer to how to contain that combination and how to contain that deep cut coming from the handler space. It's something we see a lot of from Ellipsis. Player will dump the disc and immediately head downfield, not just into the stack, but as you say, to actually provide a threat. It's Copland with that pull. He does a little better than his last one.
Going to be received by Cook, who hits Hermack in the center of the field. And then Seb Brown on this close sideline. Back to Permack. Back to Cook. Handler's happy to just keep moving it. Bonnie tries to find Thomas Vo down the line, but just completely overthrows him. Thomas Vo almost looked like he pulled out of that one slightly, like he didn't expect that throw to be going up.
Maybe a little bit surprised, but I think regardless, that had a little too much juice on it to be received by anyone. And it'll be harsher as Ellipsis get another opportunity to break.
Being marked by Bonnie, hits Boyle, nice floaty flick around. There is a call downfield though, which I'm not 100% sure what that one was, actually. Seems to be a discussion of whether the disc will stay or whether the disc will return. I think the disc is staying. Boyle with the disc. Not much movement occurring downfield, so he hits McGuckin on this close sideline on the inside break. Back to Harsher. The floaty up and around backhand to Matthews Hunter. Back to Harsher. Copland provides the swing cut but doesn't get hit. To McGuckin on the far sideline, who punts it deep. Has Tommy Boyle there. Thank you very much. Ellipsis up 13-6, and there we see it again, Max. Another handler cut deep.
And it's really hard to stop because you're really intent on preventing that handler being able to stay in that handler space and to provide the resets and change the angle of attack. So you often give them a bit bigger buffer heading deep than you would for another player. And Boyle punishes you there for it. And with his size, he makes for an attractive target. And McGuckin very happy to hit it.
He had a lot of separation on that cut as well. It was as if his mark wasn't 100% expecting that cut to happen. And even with 2 trailing Mammoth defenders, they just couldn't prevent that one from occurring. They stretched that lead out now by 7 to 13-6. This is not how I thought the scoreboard would look at this point in the game.
No, neither did I. I thought this was going to be a hard-fought one right down to the wire, and I'm sure Mammoth will continue to fight, but it's not the position they wanted to be in. I mean, to some extent, maybe they look at this and say, we're both heading into a quarterfinal tomorrow, and maybe they don't see a lot of advantage in terms of playing I-beam or playing heads of state. They see them as pretty equal contenders. They did have a tight match when they played each other, so maybe there's not a lot that separates them. Maybe stylistically, Mammoth feels like they match up better on one than the other. I'm not sure what's informing them at this point, whether they keep their foot down, but at least for their own sense of confidence, you'd hope that they were able to string a few offensive holds together from here.
De Hollander with the disc on the far sideline. Mammoth managed to get a nice gainer down there. They're sitting about centre, halfway of the field. Bonnie on the close sideline. Doesn't have many options coming towards the disc, so dumps it back to Grimman, who swings it to Cook, who hits Vo on the inside, but had an outstretched Howard there, Walker there, sorry.
Huge hammer over the back. And that's nicely brought in
by Lachlan Bonnie.
Thomas Vo uncorks one. We haven't seen that from him tonight. And Mammoth still kicking, but with a massive deficit.
Still showing they're still alive in this game.
And looking ahead, Ellipsis, at least for now, in the driver's seat and looking like they'll be matching up on I-beam in a quarterfinal tomorrow morning. Do you think the Ellipsis play, this team, matches up better against Newcastle's I-beam, or is that Hoss Melbourne juggernaut team one that they'd prefer to play?
The I-beam team this year is a really interesting one to look at because it's a bit of a merger between the classic Newcastle I-beam that we know and then the Wollongong Crank team. So it's a bit of a merger, which means that team has a lot of wealth and knowledge and experience coming to them. So you do expect big things coming out of them. And I think the question that needs to be asked is, will the Ellipsis youth cope with that level of experience?
One personnel change to note that happened just this afternoon, unfortunately, for that I-beam squad was Tim Booth, one of those veterans we're talking about with a lot of experience. Did injure his knee and he'll be out for the rest of the tournament. How they react to that and move forward will be only seen tomorrow, but maybe influencing that exact thought as they look ahead. Ellipsis like the idea of playing a depleted I-beam. But right now, they're going to have to play ultimate from the back of their own end zone. As Phillip goes over the top with a hammer to Ely to open up a little bit of space. As Chulett and Ely will play catch to move it upfield. And Mammoth in this junky look, trying to slow things down from Ellipsis.
Very interesting junky look. Then Mammoth aren't really, it doesn't look like they're really marking much, but they're really taking away the downfield options. And I don't know if you can see it right now, but Toolett was just trying to point and give directions on exactly where he wanted his cutters to move to. It's Grimmond with the disc now to Malenfant on the far sideline. Back to Grimmond in the centre of the field. He's trying to direct traffic. I want you here, move here. Malenfant gets a disc again, puts up the hammer. Overthrows. But there is a foul call on the throw potentially.
It wasn't a pretty looking throw out of the hand, potentially a foul. The culprit for that, for those wobbles. And Malenfant will get it back. Uncontested foul.
Uncontested foul there from Andrews. He'll get another whirl at it. Looks as if the disc is going to be coming in on stall 3.
Malenfant.
Inside break to Phil English, but he just can't keep it up. That was a bit of a worm burner.
And I guess the list doesn't lie. Jewett fires back the other way. Blady backhand. Definitely not his best throw all
Did
night.
that land infield though, Max?
Looks like they're not quite sure either.
If that didn't land infield, well, I think Mammoth are going to get a little bit of ground back on that throw.
It will be Melbourne that picks it back up.
So he goes for a little bit of a walk off there on the far sideline.
And they will march it back up the field. The disc not coming back in after it left.
Giving Mammoth's offense plenty of time to set up and also figure out that communication, find some clarity. What are they doing? How are they going to get this one in?
Jonah Mallenfant, an aggressive thrower. We've seen earlier this weekend he's willing to take those higher risk, high reward shots, but also very capable of playing the safe game when he has to, as Grimmond elevates to retain possession. And he shoots a hammer over two, looking for Joel Cook, but it's too far.
Joel Cook just doesn't have hops like Liam Grimmond by the looks of it there, Max.
No, and I mean, Joel Cook's a springy lad, but Liam Grimmond's, he's all rubber and springs inside him. It's pretty impressive stuff.
It was a great look there from Grimmond, just the execution wasn't quite there. Joel Cook was standing out in acreage of space in the back of that end zone.
And it's Ollie Loughnane. Looks to move things quickly. And we've got a travel call. He's a little too eager to get the disc moving.
Toolett pointing to his cutters downfield. You're going here, I'm going there.
Andrews looks for a medium weighted pass, finds Evans. Loughnane streaming through the guts. As Mammoth's defense resets, recovers and contains Mallenfant on the mark. Andrews eventually finds Evans. Big bid from Grimmond for not a whole lot. Andrews again, looking to get every second at this point. Phillips. Loughnane. Back to Phillip. Andrews holds on. Mammoth defense doing a better job of slowing them down. And Andrews says, "This is how you throw a hammer," as he hits Albie Evans on the chest.
Seen a fair few hammers this game now, Max. It's interesting. It's not a throw that I've seen a lot of throughout the tournament, and we've seen 5 or 6 now, with a fair few of them coming off for the score.
Well, I think that's partly a product of playing in the evening, where that heavier air often feels like people have a few more throws in their arsenal, and the wind's died off as well. So they're feeling confident. They're not worried about the conditions. Conditions are perfect. And Andrews dials one up to perfection there.
Ellipsis wanting to put a very strong D-line on now. They're coming out for match point. What type of D do you think we're going to see now, Max?
I think generally speaking, they've been successful with their match offense with a pretty simple force. They've gone middle a few times, and I think that's probably something they'll continue here. You know, at this stage, it's about preserving legs. They want to get this point done. They want to get home to get rested. Quarterfinals tomorrow, it's bracket play, it's elimination play, so there's no room for error. And they'll want to be coming into that fresh of mind and fresh of body.
It's going to be a hotly contested point. Ellipsis are going to be working hard for this. Mammoth offense have certainly got their work cut out for them. They have to win every point now to even stay in this match.
They do. They do indeed.
McGuckin with a big pull. Looks like a brick though. Doesn't quite stay in the field. Elliot Cook's picking that one up.
We've had a few bricks tonight, which is somewhat surprising given the pretty perfect conditions that we're playing in, but they haven't quite been able to calibrate their throws.
Yeah, wind is almost completely gone now, so it's perfect playing conditions. So those types of throws really just shouldn't be happening anymore. Cook with the disc. Hits an outstretched Bonnie on the far sideline. Pump fakes. Hits Spielman. on the around. Finds Gaunt. Vo with a little jinky and gets on the under. He's looking off options. He's looking off options. Hits Permac. Oh, to an outstretched Lee with Spielman now in the centre of the field. Brown, close sideline. He puts it up. He has Bonnie going deep.
Oh, Lachlan Bonnie. Not quite able to hold on.
Can't quite hang on to it. Here's the replay.
I thought he got his hand on it first, and he does.
He gets a hand to it, but just can't quite lock the thumb under it for it to stay in there. So this is what Ellipsis want. This is what Ellipsis need to take out the game now, Max.
Mammoth playing some really lovely offense there. And that last catch, stumbling at the final hurdle. Ellipsis will go the other way.
Boyle, immediate look deep to McGuckin. Just doesn't come off, but the disc is down this end zone end, and realistically that's where Ellipsis want it. They're going to have to clamp down the defense. They're going to work hard to try and make Mammoth work it back. Because if they don't, then they're going to get a quick turn close to their sideline, close to their end zone. Yeah,
Boyle looks like he's fired up to play some defense now, redeem that execution error. He'll be unhappy with that throw. He knows he's a better thrower than that, and that's an option that he should be hitting.
Cook with the disc, trying to direct some traffic. Bonnie on that far sideline. To Vo, to Spielman, to Bonnie again on that far sideline. Mammoth trying to move the disc quickly. Cook down the line. Hits Seb Brown in the centre of the field, and then around to Spielman. Has Elliot Cook pick called in the stack, and that is why you see Lachlan Bonnie free in an acreage of space there.
He's good, but he's not that good. And Elliot Cook will have another look at it.
He's engaged his dump straight away. Has Cal Spielman. Cal Spielman gets that one. Mammoth stay alive for another point.
They do indeed. Elliot Cook finds his teammate streaming down line. And as you say, they keep their hopes alive. It's a long way to come yet, but crazier things have happened in ultimate than a 7-point comeback. So don't write off Brisbane Mammoth yet.
Certainly not. Their defense, as we've seen in the first few points of the game, their defense has the capacity to be able to generate those turns. They just need to channel those first couple of points. The intensity, the level, the grit, and play like they did, and they can generate the turns from Ellipsis, then they just have to capitalize on them.
It's Malenfant calling this line for Mammoth, and something we've seen a lot of, or a fair bit of this weekend as players battle the heat and in particular the humidity, is a lot of chalk floating around, clearly some rock climbers among the players. They've been chalking up their hands before every point, attempting to manage the humidity and the sweat. You can see a few of the players rubbing their hands together as they try and ensure they're going to have a good grip of the disc.
The morning game certainly was interesting, as it was a combination of humidity, sweat, sunscreen, and grass dew. All make for a slippery disc.
Oh, it's a killer combination, and a lot of teams struggled this morning to hold on to the plastic. Jonah Malenfant gets things underway for what potentially could be the last point of the game if Ellipsis can hold their offense. And they're back to their zone defensive look from Mammoth. Joshi Phillip wide open, wants the long. The throw won't be delivered though, as Loughnane surveys his options and will opt to centre it back to Tullett, who will move sideways to Ely. Ely spending probably equal times in that handler space and in the end zone. As we've mentioned before, makes him a tough customer to deal with.
Mammoth bringing out that junkie look again, where they're really trying to limit the downfield movement and force them to work through the handlers.
Ely back to Tullett again, having to concede ground, but Loughnane makes most of it back. Hill, back to Tullett, back to Hill. Tullett finds Loughnane. As they approach the end zone now, they're about 18 yards out. Finds Tullett again, willing to play patient and then increase the tempo at a moment's notice. As they look to do so now, Chillett instead centres back to Ely. Looking to slow things down. Phillip injects himself from the back of the field. Things start to move. And Cutters cycle in and out of space. Andrews looking to provide something, can't give much. Eventually gets open on John McNaughton, having to work very hard against him. McNaughton probably one of the few players with the agility and pace to stay with Andrews. As he plays catch with Chillett across the field. And we get a pick.
The intensity is just picked up in the past 10 passes there. The Mammoth defense is doing really well to prevent the downfield options, but the handlers are just the handler dump mark. They have to clamp down because that dump throw is just far too easy for them right now.
And once this gets resolved, Ellipsis have the disc, possibly 6 inches from the end zone line in the hands of Tom Chillett. They look to get things done. Instead, they'll send it to Andrews. Cam line streams to the far side, screaming for it, and we get another pick call.
Another pick call.
I know that Cron Hudson, the coach of this Ellipsis team, was saying they're having a few issues with their spacing in some of the earlier games today. It's possibly what's causing these picks now.
Don't know if you just noticed there, but Cammy Line sitting in the break side, giving the old point. I'm going to cut here.
Oh, and it's intercepted by Chris Brown. And Mammoth give it straight back.
Oh, that is such an unfortunate turn. He did such hard work to get that run through D, and then I don't know if it was a foot block or he just threw it out into the space with no receiver there.
And Ollie Loughnane and Chillett will pass the disc between them. And Chillett fires to the end zone. And what better way for Ellipsis? What more Ellipsis way is there to finish than with a fat side forehand to Peter Ely as they take the match 15-8.
You could almost call that champagne Ellipsis. We've seen it multiple times throughout the game, and then they closed out with it. Tool it to Ely on the fat side there. It almost seems a bit too easy.
And Ellipsis take this one in dominating style. They finish 15-8, walking all over Mammoth in the end. We talked a big game at the start. We thought it'd be tight, but Mammoth really just not there. They're just not up to the level that Ellipsis are at, clearly, or they weren't tonight at the very least. We'll see whether they can prove us all wrong tomorrow, as they'll meet Hoss in the quarterfinal, and Ellipsis will meet I-Beam. And we'll be streaming games all day tomorrow from the Australian Ultimate Championships here in Townsville, Queensland. Lots more to come, so stay tuned to the Ultimate Australia YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button, like this video. It's been a pleasure being with you. My name is Max Senstrom. I'll be joined by Oakley Rynan. We'll see you guys next time.
See ya.
Alti.tv